Welcome to Clean Your Toilet podcast. My name is Tommy Dean. I'm playing the host for this afternoon.
Hi,
morning.
Tommy. Morning, yeah.
Good morning. And we've got Xing Jian. Am I saying that right?
Yes, Xing Jian.
Sweet. Well, a bit about me. I am a music performer and educator, and I've been in full-time music with a small COVID gap where I went into videography. So this sort of stuff is a little bit familiar, let's say. And with me we have Xing Jian. Who are you?
Yep. Hi everyone. So my name is Xing Jian. You can call me XJ2. I respond to my double initials. I've been a life coach for 17 years, and currently I've chosen the niche of men's mental health because I feel like that's important, and it's great that I have a man here with me, Tommy. Maybe we'll get into it. Yeah, but I believe that you have a different topic that you want to table today.
That's right. Today, I like us to talk about freedom of expression.
Ooh, okay. Big one.
It's quite big, I think, in Singapore culture, but also in general. Let's just kick it off with the first question that we prepared. What does freedom of expression mean to you personally? And how has your understanding of it evolved over your career?
Okay. So for me, personally, I would like to be able to say and do whatever I want. That is, I feel like, as layman as it gets, right? Over career, then, so when I say that, I'm coming at that question from like maybe as a child, right? Then as you grow up, you add on the addendums like, oh yeah, don't break laws. Oh yeah, don't offend people. Oh yeah, don't appear rude. Or yeah. So then the addendums come on after, right? Then suddenly the initial document is do whatever you want. But then your appendix is like 20 pages long. Because you move into life and you go into society, and then you begin to like see like, oh, okay, actually, maybe certain groups I can do certain things, certain groups I can't do certain things, and then you do all that mental adjustment / gymnastics / whatever other word you can put in. Yeah. So that's how I would like high level answer that question.
Nice. I like the starting off. Most people, because when we talk about freedom in general, not just of expression, most people will start off with that definition.
Yeah.
This is a personal question that I find quite interesting in general. I've actually wanted to do a street
interview
podcast. So what is freedom to you?
And then we see.
And in general, in the back of my mind, I've been collecting answers to that question, like, what is freedom? I think the best I've heard is Dave Goggins' freedom is self-mastery, which I think is a slightly better, well...
Oh, it's
definitely better.
Yeah, it is.
Whatever I want, whenever I want.
That's right.
Like, which is, I mean, the whatever I want, whenever I want, in this case, expression, saying, or...
Yeah.
I was going to unpack that, actually, because we could talk about what is freedom and then talk about what is expression.
Yeah. I feel like they can be a bit different. Yeah.
Sure, because I mean, if I wanted to move to Bali...
Yes.
Is that something that I can express? Because I may first express the sentiment, and of course I want to move to Bali. I'm a musician, so like, although the wages there for musicians not so good. Digital nomad life is pretty great there. I've just come back from Bali, and I'm a little bit in love with the country.
How many days were you there?
I was there just under 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
It's a good long trip.
Yeah.
So it's a couple of things I guess we'll unpack in my journey straight off the bat. I have had an extremely privileged upbringing.
Okay.
Like, extremely. I feel super grateful to... Well, I didn't know. When I was a kid, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's just...
As an adult,
that's your childhood, right?
I'm like super grateful. Like, wow. I was really, genetic... Or what is it called? Jackpot. Like lottery ticket of where I could have been born on this planet and who I could have been born to.
Yeah.
Struck gold.
Yes.
Like in a bunch of ways. Funnily enough, so my father is English and my mum is Hong Kong Chinese.
Okay.
And I'm an artist.
Yes.
And I had platinum education, basically. And I was a good boy for a really long time. I like to think I was a good boy till at least 21, 22.
Like did the grades.
I did the grades.
Did the exams.
I did the exams.
Never complained from teachers. Tommy was a great kid. Conscientious student, blah, blah, blah.
No, I mean a little mischievous.
Okay.
But always, what report card always said pleasure to teach.
Okay. There we go.
And I think that's because, well, in part, and you may unpack this. Well, cut straight to it. It's called clean your toilet.
Yes.
We go straight to the good stuff.
Yeah, let's go to the good stuff. Yeah.
My parents split when I was 11,
Okay.
and the same year I switched from ACS. Nothing wrong with ACS to UWC, which the number of kids per class halved.
So it became smaller.
Teacher attention shot through the roof, and so like it went from educational mediocrity to educational excellence. At the same time, I went from an amazing home life to a not so amazing home life.
Okay.
And I think that really what forced me to dive into school even harder.
Yeah.
And I'll go so far as to say that I was a good boy till about 21, 22.
Yeah.
Finished my degree at least. Got the
got the paper.
chop.
Yeah, got the chop. Yeah.
Actually, so the degree was also in chemical engineering, which is like one of the hardest degrees to.
Yeah.
It depends on who you talk to. It's harder to get into than medicine, depending who you talk to.
Yeah, I've heard that for sure.
And so, speaking of freedom of expression, moving to Bali, digital nomad, career sort of stuff, a lot of people expect that my father would be the one who was more accepting of my pivot and my shift into music and the arts.
Correct.
But on my approximate timeline, although my dad may disagree now, I feel my mom took 4 years to turn around.
Okay.
For the idea of me being a musician.
Yeah.
And I think my dad took between 7 and 8 years to turn around.
Okay, so almost double the time.
Almost double the time.
Yeah.
Although he may say it was 5 or 6.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
We all remember things the way we want to remember them.
I remember a lot of grief for picking my career path until quite late.
I could imagine. Yeah.
But again, most people, I think that's very much related to the sort of cultural topic we want to address today in terms of freedom of expression. Because the first piece is, well, what might be a block is parental, or we like to say societal expectations, right? But lately I've been thinking, no one in society is holding you accountable as like, hey, are you seriously gonna change career?
Yep.
People coming up in and off the street telling you to, I think you're making bad life choices. Like no one's doing that. It's only the voice in our heads.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
And if you're a coach or a therapist, then you know it's always the parents. So really,
Yes.
I say always. It's a loose always, like 80.
It is a loose always.
80%.
100%.
Or
sorry.
It's 100%, 80%.
100%, 80%, yes. Because we want to give 20% for like other factors, extenuating circumstances, right?
And other parental figures who are not your parents.
Yep.
Teachers, priests,
You
whatever.
sound like you've been to therapy.
I have. My parents split when I was 11. So a lot of therapy, I had super privilege. So like everything that we could materially ask for,
You had.
I basically had, yeah.
Okay.
And so maybe that's why I gravitated towards, it's like, hey, Dad, you worked so hard and did the private equity, super finance path,
Yeah.
and your marriage still didn't work. So maybe I should be exploring not material things. And my life is a bit of a testament to that.
Understand. Okay.
Well, yeah. So let's see, hang on. What is freedom of expression to me personally? So you answered it. I feel like we could ask.
I mean, we can
Ask and then
jump. We don't have to
ping-
follow.
and we can
yeah.
ping pong.
Yeah,
no, I
just
just
ping
meant
pong.
like your base level of doing what you want when you want,
Yeah.
right? And being able to say and do what you want. I think a big expression, for example,
Yeah.
this is the Bali piece, was like, well, your choice of career, right?
Yes.
Is not necessarily, okay, I've chose a particularly creative field,
Yeah.
but I'd argue that freedom of expression is also just like, how do you choose to express your life energies?
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Super zen and all that,
Correct.
but like,
yeah. But very different. Yeah,
Right.
Like you call it my choice, right? My career choice, right? Yeah. 100% different. I think when I chose it, my family was like, first, like, what is this? What is coach? Coach what? Is it like fitness coach? Is it like sports coach? Are you going to be a PE teacher? Right? Those are the type of like questions and the vibes that came across.
how old are you, by the way?
Yeah. I'm 41 this year.
41. Okay, we're 5 years apart.
Okay.
I'm 36.
Oh my goodness. You're like same age as my younger brother,
Yeah, we're siblings, basically.
essentially.
Okay, cool. Because you're not my dad. Just kidding. Do you get
You're
that?
not my brother.
Do you get that in your sessions?
Sometimes.
Like people feel like that's
Yeah,
a little
because-
too close to the bone.
I mean, if we want to go into that, it's around the roles that we play, right? So sometimes, for example, like one thing that happened that I've been reflecting on recently was that I had a client who experienced me as the first male figure who was a bit more emotionally available and a bit more emotionally in touch. And to be able to like listen and converse around topics like feelings. Right? So then you can imagine his upbringing is like ultra conservative. We don't talk about feelings. It's just work and like, do you study and do you mess up in school?
Right.
Right. So then for the first time, he's like, this is weird because it's a guy, but feelings and feels kind of good. I guess that's okay. Yeah. So
Like freeing. Feels kind of good, like freeing, because presumably it doesn't feel kind of good in
I mean,
like a...
specifically for this client, it was a bit confusing.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Because he associated warm feelings of being able to speak about emotions with women whom he's attracted to.
Right.
And the confusing part was like, he was like, does that mean I'm attracted to guys now?
Right.
But that quickly he checked, and no, it's not. It was it was clear that it was just not experiencing a male figure being able to hold that kind of space as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So less figures, but more like roles, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in this, we're going to try and unpack freedom of expression and on a personal level.
Yeah. Like, why did you?
There's the side of, well, I wanted to unpack what expression might even be, because I think that going in, most people think, oh, it's just, what we can say.
No.
But I was trying to get towards the line of, if I wanted to move to Bali or like even my decision to become a musician.
Yeah.
That is a form of my freedom of expression, which I wanted to flag early on that because I had amazing privileged background, I don't have that afforded me the freedom of not having to care for my parents in like financially. A lot of my peers, not from the second school, but a lot of my peers, just especially at university, were looking to get like a good job so that they could then not return the favor, because that's a bit of a crass way of putting it, but to support their parents in their retirement.
Yes.
Whereas I was very lucky that my parents' retirement is more or less taken care of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taken care of in like
like monetary or material sense.
Material, yeah. And now they're looking for, riches and like richness of experience and traveling and, their golden years. That stuff doesn't come cheap.
Yep.
So that's another type of freedom of expression. So I guess this conversation for today, I think there's the things that we want to express, both. I want to talk about that in terms of relationally, which is the more classic way of like, what might I be holding back in terms of an important conversation or something when people, especially nowadays, where people need to speak their truth. Yeah, that's like a big thing. Yeah. But so there's that piece. Yes. And then there's what I think of as, well, me choosing to do my life path. Yeah. And then tied in the sort of, let's say, moving to Bali, or let's say the blocks to that might be, what would my parents say? Oh no.
Are those two blocks, you think?
No, as in like making a big career move. Yeah. Or big career change. Yeah. And then that fear of what might my parents say, or what would society say, I was sort of suggesting would be one of the blocks that people might experience in terms of their own freedom of expression. Okay. Because you mentioned it started off as a base level of, I want to be able to do and say whatever I want, and then you add in a bunch of addendums.
Correct. And it's like the addendum is longer than the main document. Yeah.
And the addendum is longer than the main document. Yeah. That's right. Maybe could we find another working definition that's somewhere which cuts through some of the addendums?
Sure. Okay. So now that I hear you more, maybe a different working definition would be, is freedom of expression is our ability to kind of choose the way we want to move through the world. Right? A different way of saying that could also be the way we choose to show up. Yeah. Even though I'm not sure how, like, some people might have a different relationship to the word show up. Yeah, like it feels like maybe it's a performance thing or it's an achievement thing. But then I personally feel a more neutral way would be like how it's just how we move through the world, right? And how we see ourselves or how others see us would then fall into, I guess, what you would say the expression part.
Blocks to expression.
I don't know if it's a block, but it's just it is an expression, because I would say sometimes we don't know what we are expressing. We think we know, but we might not be fully aware.
Right.
And then people will, quote unquote, give feedback and say, hey, did you know that you're blah blah blah? You know, you're coming across this way.
Right.
And then that's when your awareness gets activated and it expands because, oh, I'm so sorry, I never knew that I was coming across that way. And then we adjust, and then the expression changes.
Right. So under this definition of like how we are showing up, and that could be either performative or like speech, or then just how we actually show up or move through the world is what you sort of said.
Yeah.
If you were to give yourself an abstract score out of 10, arbitrary personal score out of 10, 10 being you feel like the most free you could possibly be, and 0 is like enslaved. Where do you think, how many dimensions of, before we even split it into the dimensions of freedom, we could just like a overall blanket score out of 10?
So I guess it's just a feeling score, right? It's a feeling score, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it's a bit like, maybe like a 7.
A 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how many countries have you lived in?
1.
1?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the next question I was going to ask was like, how do you feel like your score compares to the average Singaporean?
Yeah.
And then as a benchmark, how would that compare to other cultures?
Oh.
Of course, this is like hugely like,
anecdotal and like
anecdotal. This is not scientific at all. Like, but just to put some numbers on the board.
Okay, I feel the average Singaporean probably feels that they are an 8 or a 9.
Really?
Because of the illusion that they have, the average Singaporean.
Okay. That's so I hear when people hear about your career.
Yeah.
What's the first reaction?
Why?
Why?
Or what? Why or what?
Why or
why or what is it?
So if they know what it is, they'll say why.
Yeah.
Right.
And even if they know what it is, the why comes from probably quite a limited or a blanket understanding of what like a life coach does.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of judgment, in my opinion. Like when you go out there, I mean, Google will give you the judgment. You type life coach and it's like, you have like 20 million people with varying degrees of like adjective, right? Oh, energy coach, Reiki coach, spiritual coach, horoscope coach, marketing coach, leadership coach.
Oh, you're a mental health coach.
But
men's mental health
correct,
coach.
Yeah. So like,
that's amazing.
It's like I'm forced to choose the niche because that's the way the world currently works in terms of, I guess, expression, in terms of communication. Yeah.
No, but I think it also...
But it's important, right?
I think it's super important.
That, like you have to speak the language that people can understand, right? So then my judgment or my misgivings, those are personal, right? It's nothing to do with the way the world works. So I have to make that separation clear.
Yeah.
For instance, yes.
That is an important distinction that I think, because I coach a bunch of artists as well.
Yeah.
To try and help them understand their value.
Yeah, and their craft and, right?
And let me backtrack a bit. Sorry. The part about when people ask you what...
Oh, why?
Why that part. I think from my experience, I am also a third culture kid. I mentioned my mum is from Hong Kong. My dad is from the UK. Yeah. So growing up in Singapore, I've got instant always foreigner card.
Yep.
And coupled with my performer's thread meant that for a time I was collecting first impressions.
Okay.
Just to see how people react.
Yeah. To you, right?
Yeah.
As a
because I'm this weird foreign thing, so I might sometimes let's lean into it. See how far into the showman can I go? You know? Or sometimes just to mess with people, I just pretend to be a person that I'm not. just in like a short, not in like something like this, because I think I want to be respectful of the authenticity of this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'll try and be as like straight shooting as I can.
Sure, appreciate that.
I'm a bit of a joker a little bit because I'm in the performance space.
Correct.
So being a bit jokey and flamboyant comes with the territory.
Yep.
But what I will say is that whenever I tell people I'm a musician, like, wow, really? I wouldn't dare. Like,
oh, I wouldn't dare?
Yeah, I wouldn't dare. How like how do you do that?
Yeah.
Like you're so brave for choosing something that
like off the beaten path, not the usual, not the corporate job.
You followed the passion. You didn't.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous.
They say I'm so jealous?
They do. Because, and I'm like, great. Why?
Yeah.
Like, what is it about, not music per se, because most people don't want to get up and sing in front of large groups of people or even small groups of people. Actually, KTV rooms, obviously in this culture, is very big. I think that's quite an interesting dyad there. We don't want to express in a big way, but we like to find our little pockets. We can come back to KTV in a second in terms of freedom of expression, in terms of the more performance side. But I think you got a 7. You gave yourself a 7 out of 10, and you think Singaporeans would rank more highly.
Yeah, like they think that there's a lot of freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think if we consider that we have a freedom of expression, we have things that we wish to express, the ways we want to move through the world, and what I like to think of as a model is that yes, or freedom, is an open space. Yeah. And then no, or blocks, are chains.
Okay.
So yes is like, yay, so it's another reason why a lot of freedoms we take for granted is because we don't feel them. Yes. The things that we feel is we feel the red tape. Yeah. We feel the blocks. And when I say that I work in the creative space and I'm a musician, they're like, wow. They subconsciously feel some sort of block, like a little parent on the show. Oh, you can't go be doing that.
Yes, sure.
Like, what will your mother say or something? Yeah. You know?
That's right.
And so these, at least in this dimension of career choice, which is not where I was expecting this conversation to go.
Okay.
But this is cool.
Yeah, this is cool.
The freedom of expression, parents thing, most people would say that they chose the safe path. Yeah. Most people will say that at least I get my 22 days a year and I get to go on holiday.
Correct.
Right?
That's my 14 days of MC.
That's 14 days of MC, which some people may or may not use depending on how much they game the system.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think that's another thing, another common Singaporean like mantra. Is like how much can you get away with, basically. Correct. Like is it basically just don't get caught?
Do but don't get caught. That's the national service thing. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
And I think this speaks to the general air of how I think that Singaporeans are not as freely as expressed as I think they'd like to be. Oh, 100%. And I think two dimensions that we've unpacked so far is one is like the actual speech, or dancing, correct, or like the day-to-day, minute by minute,
the more public or performed kind of behavior or action, I would say.
I think time scale is a more interesting way of making that distinction. Because you have in the moment, can I sing and dance and play?
These windows, right? These specific windows.
Can I make these jokes?
Yes.
And then there's I've bought this house and I have this job.
Yeah.
and
this is me now.
I chose to express an interest in buying this house, and then I signed the paperwork, and then I put the down, blah, 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 you know?
Yes.
Then you further down a lengthier time window. Correct. And I think it's the time window is what creates the edges of what might feel as a block.
Okay.
Right? Because the more tied down you are, settled to a place or a job or hell, even a relationship. Yes. Right? I have definitely been there. Like you feel very comfortable in a place. Yeah. And at the beginning, what felt like a freedom, like an expansion of the ego boundaries, let's say, is now something potentially right. Yeah. And on the same thing on the parent piece, which is really where I wanted to where I open this dialogue, I think is around our careers, how they're not normal, so they're off the beaten path. Yeah. And then there's on some point a parental voice, or at least there's a good-natured seed to this idea, which I think is filial piety. And it's like, I want my parents to be proud of me. I think that's totally natural. And I want my parents to not have to, like, oh God, what's he doing now?
Right.
Like, not have to worry about me and be anxious. Right.
So I guess in the spirit of focus, what would you actually want to ask me? Because we're trying to set the scene a bit, right?
Set the scene.
Yeah.
I guess, for one, you've got this 7.
Yeah.
There's one I'd like to where you said you think most Singaporeans would score higher than you.
Yeah. Because it's a self-perceived number, right?
Right.
So I don't
they're
think
hitting 8s and 9s.
Yeah, because I don't think they're at the point where they have seen that the commitment, the house or the job or blah 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 is a chain. Not yet, anyway. Or they you reverse engineer your definition a little bit. You say things like, and it's like a self-cycle, right? You go like,
Right.
Can I express what? I can write on forums what? I can go hardware zone and type my stuff. Or I'm free to say XYZ amongst my friends, right? So it becomes either a very loose or I don't even know. It's so judgmental to use these words, right? But I think just for the sake of conversation, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a very loose or it's a very weak definition of freedom of expression.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we said that was your base, and then we add the addendums, right?
So I fully agree that actually that was quite. It's a bit of a based base, right? Say whatever I want, do whatever I want to do. Yeah, but actually, if we are more thoughtful about it, it's a bit more of where our conversation has gone, right? Which is the short pockets of time where maybe you would like to be spontaneous or be creative, and then the longer expressions, the longer pockets of time where like you are making commitments, you're putting time and energy and resources into a thing that you believe represents somehow you or your life or a thing that you want. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
I think also on the topic of focus, I think I wanted to get a broad sense.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to nail it into, or narrow it
Narrow
down.
it down, right? Okay.
So you mentioned sort of, I can go into forums and express my political opinion maybe.
For example,
So there's sort of just political freedom of expression could be one.
Yeah.
Artistic freedom of expression could be another. Emotional.
Yeah.
And then the sort of more abstract, my existence as a type of cosmic expression.
Yeah.
But maybe with that last one, the only reason why that one's important to me was to get into that parental friction. Yeah. Like if we picked a path, because I think I have this conversation a lot about careers because people go, wow, how did you get into music and blah, blah, blah.
Because they want to know, right?
Because they want to know.
Yeah.
And basically, how did you on some level, it's
always,
how did you navigate the parental conversation?
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that's, is there something in your journey where you had to?
Yeah.
Would you want to share about that?
Oh, sure. Of course. We can jump straight to the parent side, I think, if that makes it easier. So at least for my career with the parenting, they'll be like, so not a full-time job, or like there's no monthly income, for instance, right? So I think
who pays your CPF?
Yeah, who pays your CPF? Got CPF or not?
Got CPF or not?
Correct. These kind of questions, right?
Right.
Obviously, so I think obviously if I step into their shoes, it comes from a place of their own life experience of where things have been challenging, and then they're trying to make sure that things are taken care of, right? Because, and I get that, it is a response to the life that they have led. Whether or not all parents are up to date with how the world is currently, that one, I think you need to look at the different individual contexts, okay? But in general, I think it's safe for me to say that most parents come from, I want good for my kid or my offspring, right? And then they only speak in those, that's the only language or the understanding that they have.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say, at least for the initial parts of my career, I maneuver the agreements or like the work setup to make sure I have those things, and I can say without guilt to my parents that these things that you're asking for, I have them. It just doesn't look the same because maybe I don't do 9 to 5.
Right.
I don't put on an office shirt and take a train down to CBD and work in et cetera place. Right.
But I think speaking to, imagine someone who's about to make a career change.
Okay.
And they also have to juggle that
parent,
conversation.
yeah, then it becomes very different.
How would you advise someone like in that spot? So let's say it's a young man,
Yeah. Okay.
because that's let's say they're 27, 25.
The age doesn't matter. Because our physical age and our spiritual, mental age is very different.
That's fair.
Yeah,
But I mean, no kids is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, sure. Right, no commitments.
No
everything.
kids, yeah.
Yeah. So, but even with kids, right?
Wow.
It is obviously more complicated, but the
But let's focus on the no kids.
No, but the raw mechanics are the same, right? Like, are you able to make a decision that comes from as much of your choice, whether you're choosing to be responsible for a child or you are responsible for you having no child? Are you making a choice to do like, I'm going to give my parents a monthly allowance because that's what I'm taught to do, or I'm going to go, no, I don't want to, or I feel like, why do I owe them this, etc. You're struggling with these thoughts. All are valid, right? But then we got to figure out for this individual, what are the idiosyncratic things? What is his bugbear? What is his thing? Because we all have a specific thing vis-a-vis the parent side.
Right.
There's something that our parents expect of us or want of us that we actually have an opinion on, but we have varying degrees of quote-unquote success at navigating, pushing back, rejecting, or accepting, right? So these are the main mechanics. They're only that few. You reject, you push back, you maneuver and try to like find some balance, or you fully accept and you take on that thing with full knowledge of the effects it might have on, let's say, your freedom of expression. So it's less about like, I would think right or wrongness in this case, but is I would focus on, does this individual fully know what they are doing when they say yes or no to the set of like circumstances and expectations? Right. Because a lot of resentment or unhappiness comes when sometimes people say yes and they never check what does yes actually mean. Right. But then after that, they don't take responsibility for the yes. Right. They go with whose fault. Or like, someone cheat me lah, government never said clearly lah, or like, I didn't read the contract clearly, etc. Right? So it's a bit different. So if we talk about this idea of what we're talking about today in Clean Your Toilet podcast, and if I try to make just a link back, it's always about your personal awareness and your personal responsibility when it comes to whatever life you choose. Right? Yeah.
Amazing. That's the magic word right there.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say that in our initial freedom of expression definition.
Yeah, which was a bit meh.
It's okay. It's a good starting point.
Yeah, but we evolve it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine. The remedy to... so like personal responsibility was your point there.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think what we are sort of saying without saying it is that the increase of your personal responsibility is an increase of your freedoms of expression.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, I think so.
Right.
Yeah, I think the correlation is...
Spider-Man!
Yes.
But the other way around.
Yeah,
Great. With great responsibility comes great and power, in this case, power of expression.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think that's awesome. And
how does that help with your questions about your own thing?
How does that help with my questions? Well, it validates them, so that's cool.
Oh, okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Validation. No, I think I mentioned the David Goggins self-mastery one. I think that ties in strongly with that. Like the greater you have, the greater degree that you take responsibility of your life, that is a degree of self-mastery, and that is a degree of freedom. Yeah. And I do disagree slightly with the kids dynamic because I don't want to unpack it, but essentially there's a very direct limiting of the first definition of doing what you want, when you want, how you want, right? The kids put a big block on that, but I don't want to
my counter was always like, but you chose to have the kid.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. Right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I think even in cases of like unexpected pregnancies, right? Like there's definitely some level of recklessness, that would like bring forth a child when both parties might not want a child.
Let's not go down that path either. Yeah. I think the other way of other freedom of expression I wanted to unpack, probably the more obvious one, is artistic expression.
Okay.
in Singapore. And our second
I might
question,
lean on you more for artistic because I'm not. I mean, I don't use artist to describe myself.
whoa,
Fully. Yeah, because
you should.
I am artistic, but I don't think I qualify for the word artist. Artiste with the
With an
T-E,
the E
ES.
on the end.
Yeah, the E on the end.
E in the end.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But sure, let's sorry, I
But
interrupted
I
you.
think no problem. The artistic expression, even if you're not doing it as a profession,
Yeah.
you're a proponent of men's mental health.
Yeah. And my background was actually in writing and communications and PR. So
Well, there you
I
go.
definitely get like creativity is
Creativity
important.
points.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I think more interesting on the mental health piece,
Yeah.
I think, well, we have this parental pressure, or at least internalized parental pressure
Sure.
of
Yeah.
conforming to a specific job, which is one form of freedom of, well, perhaps potentially a limit
Yes.
to the freedom of expression.
Correct.
But the flip side of that is like, well, you can afford a certain level of lifestyle as a result, potentially.
Yeah. So that's the exchange that you
And
make.
that's the exchange.
That's right.
Right. So there's one.
Yeah.
But then baked into that, you've definitely got this idea where I'm trading this uncomfortable amount of time
Yeah.
with this thing that I have to sort of, at least at the best case, put up with. Maybe for some people, they do really find tax advising really enjoyable,
Yeah.
potentially.
Correct.
But for a lot of people, it's just a job
Yeah.
that's a means to an end. And for their own fulfillment, which I think freedom of expression is a big piece. Because if we limited our freedom of expression, you put 7, right?
Yeah.
But if I put it down like to a 1,
Yeah.
we would say that we would live in a tyrannical, horrible society, right?
Dystopian.
Dystopian,
yeah.
right.
I'm probably in a cellar somewhere.
Right. But so somewhere along that spectrum, there's clear impact on mental health,
Yeah.
right? And if you're happy with the trade-off that you're going to work maybe in investment banking 80 hours a week
Yeah.
for
X amount of money.
X amount of
Yeah.
money for X number of years,
Correct.
there are other side. What's the? In my answer,
Yeah.
the answer to what creates the de-stress, if this is the stressor, which is the
Yeah.
job, and then you have something outside it, it's usually friends, family, socials.
Correct.
It's emotional expression,
Yeah.
right? If you're spending all this time doing utilitarian, like what's for the bottom line, because that's the left brain, like parental voice, that's like the sensible thing.
Yeah.
I actually think that the antidote to that type of culture is artistic expression. That doesn't mean we need more full-time artists.
Yeah.
I think it does mean that we need, like, first off, can we get on that? Can we find some agreement there? I think
That we don't need more full-time artists?
No, that in order for us to be healthy human beings, we need to balance the left brain, pragmatic side, and then the more artistic or emotional side of our experience.
Yes.
I mean, you deal with men's mental health presumably on a daily basis.
Correct.
Do you ever recommend picking up a pen and drawing or pencil, or do you ever recommend art therapy?
Oh, 100%.
Oh,
so it's
please
about,
tell me more.
It's always about expression, right? So, for example, if talking is not your thing, so for example, if the thought of you sitting down with a mental health professional and spilling your guts is like for you, then find another medium, right? Some people do their walks in the forest. Like one thing that I highly recommend, and I do myself, is I'll get my phone out and I do like, have you watched Star Trek? You know, Captain's Log, Captain's blah, 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 like 13th AD, da, da, da. I do that.
Love that.
And you vocalize and then you record it and then you keep it, finish your talking, go shower, eat prata, whatever, come back, listen to it again. It's a bit different. There are 2 effects. The first effect is when you first are vocalizing. So you hear yourself speaking live one time, you go take a rest, clear your brain, then you play it again, you hear yourself a second time. I don't know what you'll get from these 2 iterations.
I actually do this.
You see? Okay, so you kind of get, but everyone gets something different.
Yeah.
There's a lot of power in hearing yourself speak because you have your brain makes a connection that goes, oh, that's how I sound, or that's what I'm dealing with, or that's what I'm experiencing.
Right.
And then suddenly you have an option that goes, how do I feel about that? Do I want to continue feeling and experiencing those things, right?
Right.
So it opens a possibility for change in some way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So is that something you recommend a lot of your clients?
For the oral and the speaker, the yappers,
The yappers?
that's
of
very
which
good.
I definitely am one.
Right. If you're not a yapper, then do the stream of consciousness writing.
I recommend that one too.
Right. But if that's, I always feel, personally, I find that harder because as a writer myself, and I spend so much of my career like looking at terrible English, like sometimes stream of consciousness can be quite triggering. It's like, oh, bad English, right? So then it's extra work to shut off that reaction. So then that's why I go the yapper the yapper route.
But I mean, to me, that's indicative that you should definitely be doing more of that.
Fine. Yeah.
Fine.
He's right, everyone. Yeah. So yes, but that's actually very powerful, right? Like, and I think I just spoke about this in another episode where, like, if you're really serious about personal work and trying to figure stuff out, like normally the clue lies in the space where you feel discomfort.
Right.
And if you try to go towards there, you might see the thing or things that are actually important. Versus the stuff that you already know, like, oh yeah, I'll do my aromatherapy, I'll go for my ice bath.
Yeah.
But like, why haven't you spoken to your mom or dad for like 20 years?
Right.
Are they still alive? What? Yes? Then what are you doing about it? Like, if they're gone, maybe it's a different thing. You know? But then you're making a choice to not speak to your parents who are alive, who make you feel uncomfortable, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So those choices, I love that.
Yeah.
That's where I wanted to head as well. So we've got this idea of artistic expression, emotional expression, and also just like showing up the way we show up.
Yes.
But I think in terms of the blocks to those freedom of expression, I think to me those are more interesting, and also where our worlds were aligned more.
Yeah.
Is I actually think that sometimes, because I've done a good chunk of therapy, and although not in recent years, but I think talking about the issues can also then prime the brain to then focus on all those things.
Yes.
And then we start to frame our lives around that problem.
Yes.
And so even within the job dynamic, oh, I hate this job because of X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
And you're looking through reasons. You're now priming your brain to look for more reasons why this job is a limit on your freedom of expression and not a bolster or a booster.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh no, this job actually, comparatively speaking, the pay is great and the holidays are actually still okay.
Yes.
So in terms of what it enables me to do, it enables me a more luxurious lifestyle. Right. So then you still run into the piece where we have tensions on the regular basis, whether it be from jobs or from our families or what have you.
Yeah.
And the more head-on approach is to maybe have the difficult conversation with your mum.
Yep.
Is there room in your let's say menu of interventions where you would recommend KTV with friends or something directly, like, because some people will say have these limiting beliefs of like, oh, I'm not musical. Oh, I'm not.
Oh, specific to music?
It doesn't have to be music. I just happen to see my.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just going to pick one metaphor.
Music.
It could be art, like in the painting, drawy sense.
Yeah.
It could be dance, which has its also endorphin boost.
Yeah.
But the picking something where someone has a limiting belief and therefore a block around their own freedom of expression.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily ready to talk to heavy about a certain topic. Might.
So do something lighter, are you asking?
Yeah, is there something?
Yeah, of course. I can share something with you now.
I would love that.
And it's specific to music too.
Would even better.
So, and the connection to myself is it's around your listening. It's your listening skill and your listening awareness, right? So what most people don't do is they don't consciously think about or reflect on how does a piece of music make them feel. They don't make that connection. They just go, okay, classical, okay, pop, okay, catchy, I tap my foot. But actually, if you slow down and you tune in to different pieces of music and genres, etc., they all evoke some kind of emotion. Even if the emotion is like, not my thing. That's a reaction. That's an emotion. You are fully within your right to choose whether or not you want to chase that thought down. Why do I not like Lady Gaga? Why do I not like Lord? Or like, metal is too much for me. This statement, too much. What does it mean? Where did it start? Right? So for me, when I work with my clients, I try to check in on like what actually produces some kind of stimulus or opinion in them. Because when you have the reaction, you have your first thread of the sweater that you're trying to pull and unravel. If that's what they're trying to investigate. Right. If it's just a light touch of like, let's do some simple awareness building. You know, go listen to these two different pieces of music and then just tell me how you feel. Like what, like beyond just I like it and I don't like it. Like do a little bit of work. Right? Like Tingle Tingle Little Star with like full orchestra. Very different feeling from Twinkle Twinkle Little Star MIDI file.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yes.
Right? Big difference.
Yeah.
Right? And then have you never been curious why there's a difference? So that's something to ponder.
Ooh, we're now getting into more advanced freedom of expression.
In a way.
No,
But from my lens, it's just like how in tune are you with your own internal responses to the stimuli that the world and the people around you throw at you.
Yeah.
Right? And then like how then do you choose to, like back to the original statement, move through the world? Because then because you are moving through the world all the time. Even you choosing to not move and just sit and do every day as like 9 to 5 computer, go home like 6 to 10 p.m. computer game is also you choosing a certain way to be in the world.
For sure.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're expressing probably some much needed release.
If I use my own personal example, right? Like I just came through kind of like I would say a bout of like high functioning depressive kind of thing. So not diagnosed, but then when I just reflect on my behavior, it's like I turn the Zoom call on, I teach my class, everyone loves me, energetic, blah blah blah, great reviews. Zoom call off, YouTube wormhole, or like Netflix binge, but it's a bit mindless, right? So then what the heck was that about? So something's going on there for myself that I will then need to make a choice about whether or not do I want to look at it and address it. Yeah.
So if we're looking at the different, we've picked apart a few dimensions of freedom of expression.
Yes.
Artistic, emotional, and let's say what's the career one? I don't know how to call that one.
I mean, to me, the career is also a way of like expression.
Yeah.
Because it is your mode of like choosing how to, I don't know, gather resources.
Mode of being, let's say.
It's a mode of being, right?
Okay.
Yeah. You've heard of people who just do career their whole life.
Yeah.
And then like they outsource like family and relationship to something. Because maybe they just want to do career. Or something.
Or just for that season, right?
Sometimes it's seasonal.
Sometimes for that
but
season.
sometimes it's lifetime.
Well,
I'm sure
I don't know about that. For me, I can't.
Okay,
speak.
but I have met people who lifetime career, and then like too late in life they go like, maybe I should spend some time with my kids. But it's a bit too late then because there are too many missed windows, or maybe relationships are too damaged, right? Because the other person also they are gonna make choices too. They are not inert reagents that are just gonna stand there and wait for you to finish your 40-year corporate stint, right? Yeah.
I guess slightly tangential.
Sure.
What's your recipe for the good life?
Oh my goodness, I'm still struggling with the good life. Like I'm wondering like what's my version of good life? Yeah, what does that even mean? That feels like a lifestyle brand that I'll go to Joo Chiat Road and like visit ice bath for the good life. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's hard to uncouple a definition of that without high levels of freedom of expression. Personally, I find it hard to.
Yeah, I see that.
I find it hard to pull those two things apart.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go so far as to say, oh, well, the good life for me is maximum freedom of expression. Well, it probably is.
It probably is, but then...
But for other people, they may not see it that way.
Correct.
I wonder, if you had to give a bumper sticker on like... Or it doesn't have to be the final answer for like, for $1 million, but what are some useful guiding
Oh, like there maybe
quotes
that I
or
that I
mantras
use?
you might have
Oh,
for like
okay.
to help someone
Yes.
live the good life. And I'm just curious in those mantras, how important does freedom of expression like rank in terms of a necessary
Oh.
ingredient for the good life?
It's actually lower. Because so for example, like one mantra that I've gone by for the longest time is like the truth will set you free.
Okay.
It's evolved over time, but its origin was from my personal coming out story. Because dealing with those dual identities was a nightmare. So to face
Sorry, your coming out story meaning?
because I'm gay.
Okay.
Yeah. So figuring that out and acknowledging that and kind of like, yeah, this is who I am was already a big thing.
We should talk about this way earlier.
I'm sorry.
I had no idea.
About expression. About expression.
Okie dokie.
About expression.
Yeah,
right?
no, for sure.
Yeah. So then the current evolved version of that is like, so then what is truth to me? Or what does being honest mean to me? And that is my current iteration of like I guess my uncovering or of my learning. Yeah. But if we go back to the version 1.0, like the truth will always set you free, no matter how scary it might seem. But not everyone can accept what I just said. They will still choose to not be truthful because of fear of like repercussion or of like a negative impact of, I don't know, like what your parents might think or what your spouse might think. Yeah. And of course, we're talking about like varying degrees of like seriousness, right? Like I want to go to a monastery for 2 years. Like what's the reaction from like parents who are merchants, for instance? Might be very different, right? Yeah. Or if you tell your I don't know, super horny partner that like I think I want to be like abstinent, like I just want to not have sex for the whole year because I want to take some time to myself. But then that's kind of like maybe their main love language. That's like a major rejection, right? Like, are you saying that you're not in love with me anymore? You don't want to do this stuff with me? Like, you know, so you can imagine like the concept of telling a truth can be so confronting and scary. Right? Yeah. So then yeah, it's just a matter of like, are you then with people who are happy to hold space for your truth, and whether is it to just accept it or to renegotiate things if that's what's needed to be done. Yeah. So that's a mantra I keep using. I'm not so sure how useful it is to listeners out there because it is quite a confronting mantra.
I mean,
at least
I
from my
think-
experience of like working with people. Yeah.
I mean, I think if we're trying to, I don't know, I think you're trying to clean your toilet, right? We're trying to get rid of the gunk,
Then you have to.
right? And if you're trying to get rid of the gunk, that means,
Correct. No one ever said it's going to be easy. So.
right. And if you don't know how big the gunk is because you haven't addressed
Yeah.
it, it's hard to work out how big a shovel you need.
Yes. Yeah.
So the first step, I think, getting really truthful,
Correct.
super important.
Yeah. I guess you want another one?
No, I don't. I was actually still
Okay.
wanted to, I'm curious
talk
now
about the
because you threw up
Oh, the coming
your
out thing.
sexuality as your freedom of expression as well. Like,
Oh, yeah.
how did that not come out sooner?
Because
wow.
I think for me right now, it's become like a non-topic.
Okay.
Yeah. So I feel the point where like I don't feel like I need to lead with that. Or, yeah.
Is gay marriage legal here?
No.
Is that not a problem? Is that do you see that as a limit on
100%
freedom
a
of
limit,
expression
right?
of gay love?
That is part of the reason why I feel like I'm a 7. Because you asked me personally, right?
Right.
Yeah. There are certain rights that I do not have.
Yeah.
Right. And I've been in the activism space before. So I know how long people have been trying. Yeah. And it doesn't look like it's going to be budging anytime soon. Still. Even with the repeal of the ancient 377A. Which took almost over a decade to even get repealed, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that made headlines,
Yeah.
which is a good important win.
Correct.
But I mean, okay.
Yeah.
For me, the freedom of expression is like magical words. We've talked about the artistic side a little bit,
Yeah.
emotional side a little bit, but I find maybe the flip side, instead of the recipe for a good life, how many problems do you find in your practice
Yeah.
can be boiled down to the toilet being choked?
It's nearly all of them, right?
Right?
Yeah,
That's
because
what I'm trying to get. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
because-
but I'm not a therapist, so I don't know the answer.
but you don't need to be a therapist to understand this basic truth, right? Yeah. Even sometimes I even feel like people are a bit overly obsessed with trying to figure out like their labels, or like they're trying to diagnose themselves, right? These are the WebMD people, Dr. Google,
Yeah.
right? But then when actually the better starting point is more of like, just start simple. What's not working? What are you not happy about? And just put that down, and then go into the specifics, and then you see this list of things. More than likely, there will be some expert or service out there that can help you, right? If you're not happy with like the decor of your home, I'm sure there are interior designers out there. If you're not happy with the internal machinations of how your brain works, then yes, right? There's so many mental health services that you should visit.
Sure.
Yeah.
But exactly to that point, if you're not happy with the internal machinations of your brain, basically, spending more time machinating.
Yes.
Right?
Correct. So
Hence the
yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So the symptom is, you have to be clear about your symptom. Some people,
Right.
they are the highly cerebral people, and then they over like intellectualize everything. And then they wonder why people don't connect to them on an emotional level. They wonder why like partners throw phrases like, you're emotionally unavailable. And then they're like, I don't even understand what that means. Yeah, because exactly that's where the gap is, right? Then yes, of course.
Yeah.
And it works for all, right? There are obviously people who are overly emotional, and then they don't even spend time slowing down and looking at like maybe doing a reality check of facts and everything. You know, everything is an emotional response. Like, you don't love me because you blah, 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 blah. Or you hate me because, you know, it's like everything's so extreme, right?
Right.
And then if you look at the third kind, it's like, I don't think about this. I don't feel anything. I'm going for a run.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they use
Another form of expression.
Yeah, right?
Is
But-
running.
Yeah, but then
For sure.
But it's also like you're literally running away from the problem because you need that space, right? But it also means that you probably need work on your ability to think maybe logically or mindfully, and also then just get in touch with your feelings. Right. So across this simple 3 spectrum thing, you can already kind of like place yourself, and you kind of know, or at least figure out like, okay, where do I think I need some work in? And then you go seek that help, right? Like with the professional who can converse with you on this kind of scale. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I nailed our dimensions of freedom now, which is, thank you for helping get some
I'm
clarity.
so curious what you've been writing down. Would you like to summarize for us?
Sure.
Because I feel like you're going through your own kind of like academic process. Like
Oh.
you're putting that platinum education to work.
Oh, sure. I mean, I have a personal thing, like if I don't write it down, it doesn't happen.
Oh, so that's what's happening. So it's just process.
It's my processing.
Okay.
But for one, I'm also trying to work out the intersect of our worlds.
Okay.
Because you're coming from men's mental health.
Yeah.
I'm personally on a mission.
Yeah.
I created a artist community.
Yes.
Well, we're launching it, but in its sort of infant form was
Okay.
18 months ago, where I created a weekly group singing session.
Okay, that's
It
fine.
was in a bar,
Yeah.
and so because it's in a bar, over 18s only,
I see. Okay.
and so I called it Adult Rock Choir.
Okay. That sounds
And-
interesting. Yeah.
I didn't know that it would be so important to people to have a chance to express a bunch of emo and angst once a
Musically,
week.
through
Musically,
song.
through song.
Amazing.
And I would never have pigeonholed it as therapy, and I will never brand it as therapy
Yeah.
because of certain stigma around it, although that's changing,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah.
It's now cool to go to therapy, or at least
Cooler.
cooler to go
Yeah.
to therapy, right? But for me, I'm addressing the individual's emotional and artistic
Yeah.
blocks to their own expression.
Great.
Right. And I think sometimes you work in men's mental health.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just got to cry.
Yep. Yeah. What I was going to say, just in response to what you just shared,
Sure.
is that when you put that voice out there, then you are choosing to become the beacon for those like-minded people. So for people who resonate with the song thing and wanting to express themselves, and it's a safe space, etc., above 18, no, crazy kids or something, then naturally you will already provide that space and quote unquote that service, so to speak, for those individuals. So like if I say men and I say mental health, then I'm hoping for all the men who are struggling, and also for maybe all the partners who are struggling with their men, to send those guys to me, right? Yeah. Because the mechanism is the same, right? If we go back to the spirit of the podcast, it's always about that internal work that you need to do in order to become better, right? Whether is it to, I don't know, some people want to excel, some people want to cleanse, some people want to be at peace. You pick your operative verb, or you pick your operative function that you're hoping to receive for yourself, right? Sometimes it's a letting go. Sometimes it's a becoming more efficient. Sometimes it's a feeling more positive.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm agnostic to all those words.
Yeah.
Right? In general, it's just betterment. Yeah.
Yeah. And within there, I'm sure you have the distinction between like symptomatic and like systemic problems.
Yes.
Like the thing that's causing more
correct
urge to cry.
Yeah.
Versus I see my thing, my activity, adult rock choir.
Yeah.
Although we're now called ruckus.
Okay.
As the release valve.
Yeah.
In some cases.
Yes.
It's not going to address your underlying concern.
Yeah. Not more often than not, right?
Yeah. More often, probably not.
Yeah.
But it will create definitely bonding.
Yes.
And definitely a good shout.
Yeah, and there is a space for such things as well, right? Yeah, not everyone is going to be able to make impact at like policy level and writing, the papers, and
right.
They need to do their job, those individuals, and then for whatever level or place we are at in our life, then we do what we can through those expressions.
I'm now curious though, because you gave yourself an overall score 7.
Yeah.
And you said it's lower because of your sexuality and feeling less free in this culture.
Yeah.
So maybe if we parse out like societal freedom of expression, artistic, and emotional as 3. Like, what's your relation? First question would be like, what's your relationship with art? How is your relationship with art?
Oh, okay. I'm a bit mindful of time.
Yeah.
So
this is to wrap up.
Yeah.
Because I also want to have something that's like more concrete. Because this has been it's difficult words to pin down, freedom of expression.
Yeah.
Because it can mean so much.
What's my relationship with art?
Yeah.
My immediate, as an instinctive reaction, is that I think it's very, very important.
No, as in your own creation, your own artistic outputs.
Oh. I doodle.
Doodling, okay.
Yeah, I write. Like recently, I did an event where I was trying to encourage people to put away their phones and just write whatever came to mind.
Love that.
And then there was this strange thing where I was sitting with a blank piece of paper, and in front of me there was someone else's artwork, and there were 3 colors, and they were trying to represent gold, bronze, and silver. Okay. So I wrote gold, bronze, and silver on the paper, and then I started to do word association. So like silver would be like, suddenly I went, moon, and then I went Diana, then I went huntress, then I went deer, then I went venison, and then I went...
World of Warcraft.
So can you even follow? Diana, moon.
Is that
so
Warcraft?
Diana, goddess, and then moon, she represents the moon.
Sure.
And then after that, she's a huntress, and then I suddenly went deer, then suddenly I went food, right? So does it have any meaning? I'm not sure, but it was me just following...
It's definitely free.
Yeah, it's definitely free.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if I didn't explain it, people would be like, what's going on here? The middle word is silver, and then there's this circle of random words, but actually it's word association.
Right.
You're right. Yeah. So I do stuff like that sometimes. Sometimes I write random poetry.
So would you say if score out of 10 you feel any urge to create art is unblocked, and whenever you do want to create something artistic, be it in word or doodle, you feel completely unhindered?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah.
And then I guess that's tangential to like emotional, but this is not your domain. Like, are there presumably you've done a lot of your own, do you call it inner work?
Inner work, yeah.
Then the fruits of the inner work tends to be being able to meet other people on difficult conversations.
No, that's more of like a byproduct.
Okay.
Yeah. Normally the fruits around inner work is you meeting yourself around difficult like conversations and coming to like a settling point for
Sure.
a specific stage in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
But then when you hit that settling point,
Then
it then
not-
has to be communicated
Yes.
outward.
Yes. That's a
when
natural-
it becomes not just freedom within, but that's a freedom of expression. Expression has to be expressed.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Outwardly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that you have freedom, internal freedom.
Correct.
But I guess I'm trying to get at like in your emotional.
Yeah, the behavior and the action still needs to come out. So for example,
Right.
you might come to an understanding that, yeah, I think I really should apologize for that incident.
Right.
Then make sure you follow through and say sorry. It's not just,
yeah.
oh yeah, I should have apologized. And then you feel good about yourself and then nothing happens. No,
True.
you still go to that person that you offended and say that you've now understood and that you're sorry for what happened. So the follow through action still must happen.
Yeah.
It cannot just be fully internal.
Because I wonder why you score yourself so low on 7. Because I also think, I wonder if it's the burden of like, you know how much work it takes to be free.
It feels it's a bit like that.
And
There's a bit of a double-edged sword to being in this industry or in this space, because then you're constantly like working, like thinking and reflecting. So if I'm not careful, it's a bit of the, you stare too long into the abyss, then the thing stares back. So I've definitely, like I've been a coach for 17 years, right? But my depressive state was very recent, right? So just a very short thing is that I saw how I use my own skills to keep myself there.
Right.
To like make excuses and to say that I'm fine or I'll work on it eventually.
Use your own skill. That's such a huge beast in itself.
Yes, right? Because human beings are very powerful at lying to ourselves as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to hope for, I know this is a very circular, like floaty conversation and not super pointed, but I do hope that people feel like listeners will feel like that freedom of expression should be like small steps that you can actually reach. Like doodling is as nice, and you feel very fulfilled artistically just by doing a few doodles, and like it shouldn't be this thing that like, oh, I didn't go to school for it, or I because it's only if I went to school for it maybe then I earned the parental approval for me to even pursue something like this. Because I mean I did want to land on KTV being like an absolute
but KTV is awesome too.
Right?
Yeah, it is awesome too.
No one says I don't have a degree in KTV, so I can't go to KTV. No one says that.
Yes.
Right?
Right. So KTV for yappers is powerful because vocally you speak and then
Yeah.
So
I'm just hoping that that on the gamut of freedom of expression, people can start to see that it's super important that everybody does it.
Yes.
Like in whatever capacity that they do.
100%.
I was hoping to get to its healing powers as well, and hoping that maybe our worlds may align on that part, but perhaps maybe not for today. Another conversation. Around how art therapy is like super important. But we did also touch a little bit about I actually think as if we start from the individual, on the little doodling sort of scale, and
it's finding your own expression and then being just in touch with that.
Right.
Yeah. And even that can come quite healing.
So we've got yes, exactly. Our own expression in the individual level. And then one ring outside of that in my mind is KTV because it's shared.
Yeah, okay.
You don't go to KTV on your own, hopefully. I mean, maybe you can.
No, I've seen people who...
You do it in your car
or
shower or whatever.
do it alone. I've seen friends who do that. And they feel very fulfilled doing that as well.
Yeah, I understand for sure.
Correct.
So whatever artistic or sort of freedom of expression you find on your own can like one ring out to your near circle, exactly. And because KTV is a bit of a sacred space in Asia, I think, because it's not like the broad bar thing. It's always
that's
like
true.
4 to 6 friends.
Yes, that's the most common
generous amount of alcohol.
Yeah,
to really drop those walls, right? And I think a very important, we didn't get to talk about this so much, but an important step in the KTV thing, an important hallmark of the KTV experience is the freedom to make mistakes.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And I wanted to unpack that a little bit more.
I didn't know you wanted to talk so much about KTV. You should have
Well-
told me.
Well, it's not just KTV. I see it as like concentric. You got the inner freedoms, and then whatever blocks you may have around that.
Yeah.
And then to your nearby groups of friends, again around. I mean, I flagged the parental issue because if you quote unquote are a pro singer, then that's easier for your parents to swallow because you've got like the accolades, like hey, as long as you got some success already. And then I was going to suggest that the road to reaching there, you need that freedom of making mistakes.
Yes.
But anyway, we hopefully presenting a certain, I mean, the visual, I don't know, can you see?
Yeah.
A visual of like personal freedom and then moving out. And then when the last one I wanted to touch, and not even touch, in fact, I didn't think we have time for it, but we sort of glossed over it, was the sort of political or social freedom of expression.
Yeah, we can definitely do another episode because you definitely are passionate about these topics. I can tell.
I think getting for myself, because I think this thing I find, like I said, my recipe for the good life is very difficult to uncouple freedom of expression.
Yeah.
Like, I think it might be something like the recipe of the good life for me is 10 out of 10 freedom of expression.
Understand. Okay.
And if you...
something to aspire to.
Yeah. And if my expression is hurting someone else, then it's probably not very thought through expression.
Yep. Correct.
And there's probably another block to my own freedom and my own understanding within that needs to be ironed out. So again, I still land on this. I'm looking for anyone to supersede like the recipe for a good life being maximum freedom of expression, and that's individual and then social and then societal.
Okay.
And then it expands out kind of that way.
Got it.
And I'm hoping people can see the importance of art being, even if it's just doodling, it's that first catalyzing step on this journey towards being, a cleaner toilet, a cleaner society. Anyway, thank you for, I think it's very insightful and interesting to tackle it from different perspectives. Like
I embrace the chaos, like how our conversation went, right? Because I think if it happened this way, it just needed to happen this way. Yeah. So then we will see how it goes.
Hopefully we can do a part 2. Well, thank you for listening.
We can do a part 2 on your platform or something.
Well, we can do potentially. That'd be quite interesting to unpack.
Thank you, Tommy.
I should have maybe brought a visual aid. But to be honest, it's talking to you that helped me clarify these thoughts.
I understand. Yeah.
So I knew it was important to me, but I was also trying to work out how can we package this in a way that's like meaningful for someone to take home and have it worth listening to the last hour or so of our
that's what I'm here for.
of this chat.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. I guess.
Thank you. Okay,
we're gonna sign off. Bye, everybody. Where's the camera? There's the camera.
The camera.